what the black man and woman needs to know about the nation, about the world, about themselves. Muhammad Speaks It. To order your 12-issue subscription to Muhammad Speaks newspaper, 313-371-7033. 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie is the grand champion of all bean pies. The rich flavor and smooth texture takes this pie to a whole new level of delicious. One bite and you'll understand why people all over the country call daily to order Kareem Bean Pie. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie.
This bean pie is delicious.
Muhammad Speaks presents Messenger Elijah Muhammad's Teachings by Minister Khalil Shabazz every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. at Muhammad's Temple of Islam, 12609 East McNichols Road in Detroit.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Soul Master's Day judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and Thee alone beseech for Thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path, path of those upon whom Thou bestow Thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard Thy teachings. Say He, Allah is one God. Allah is He of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is He begotten, there is none like Him. And I bear witness that none deserve to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is Thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. We'd like to acknowledge the brothers and sisters that extended us the greetings of Assalamu Alaikum. We have Brother Mustafa and Sister Sharice Ali from Ohio. We have Brother Minister Jabran Rashad from Chicago. We have Brother Yusuf Hakeem from Oklahoma. We have Sister Nubila from Arizona. We have Brother Samori Samad from New York. And we have Brother Mujahid Muhammad from Richmond. I'd like to say in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'd like to greet the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu Alaikum. Today we like to talk about why the black man should have Muslim names instead of Christian names. And this comes from the Messenger's article in the February 7th, 1969, Muhammad Speaks. And his title was, Why the Black Man Should Be Called by Names of God. The Messenger says, he says the black man, so-called American Negro, is a member of the family and a direct descendant of the Creator who made the heavens and the earth. Therefore, the son should be called by the name of his father, and not called by the name of an alien. The white race is an alien people to the black man. Now, this is something that we should always do, at least I try to do, is to always bring directly what the messenger said about certain things. Everything that he said, pretty much. Because the messenger is the one who taught us that we are the direct descendants from God himself. He is the one who made it plain to us why we should not be called by the devil's names. He also taught us that it was John Hawkins in 1555 who stole a boatload of black people and took us to Jamestown, Virginia. He told us how John Hawkins robbed us of a knowledge of self. He said that the first people that was with John Hawkins, he said he treated them pretty good. He said that when our first parents began to have children, he said that's when John Hawkins killed off the parents. So when he killed off the parents, the children had nobody to teach them their mother tongue, their names, their language, their God, and their religion. That's right. So then the messenger said that once John Hawkins took us and stole us, and he began the process of robbing us of a knowledge of self, he said that King James was the one who put us into mental slavery. He robbed us of a knowledge of God, the knowledge of the devil, and the knowledge of ourselves. This was King James. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that it's prophesied in the Bible. In Malachi chapter 4, it says, behold, I will send you Elijah, and he will open the hearts of the children to the fathers, and the hearts of the fathers to the children. We must always remember that it's only one person who God chooses to teach a people. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that we are direct descendants from God himself. He told us that the white race is an alien people to us. So he said we should be called by the names of God. So he goes on to say, he says so many times you have heard that God has 99 names or attributes, that which is attributed to God. So let's look at what does it mean when it says an attribute. It says an attribute is a personality trait you have, such as confidence or resilience. That's what it means to have an attribute. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that these names that God has is 99 of his attributes. So let's understand that. When we choose a holy name, these are names the messenger says that belongs to God. He said that these are his attributes. We always got it. These are the attributes of God. Praise be due to Allah. So he goes on to say, he says the 100th name or attribute of God is the name Allah. One more important thing for us to know. That one name Allah means all of the attributes together. That's very important for us to know. Because we live in the new school nation of Islam. Everybody God today. We take what the messenger says and we take it out of context. The name Allah, it really belongs to one person. That's his name. That name belongs to him. Now we could take on these names, but these names belong to him. Yes. So the messenger goes on. He said the 100th name or attribute of God is the name Allah, which represents that he is all in all. Of every good name, his name begins with the name Creator and ends with the first and the last, the eternal. Many of his attributes refer to such names as power, force, the mighty, the wise, the most merciful, the maker, the fashioner, the best knower, the all-hearing one, the all-seeing one. The Holy Quran says that he has the best names and the most beautiful names. So many of these names that we should have are pertaining to our Father. Once again, because the thing about the messenger is in his articles, he makes plain what he means. After the messenger says what he means, there is no other interpretation, no other meaning, no other understanding. The messenger makes it plain. Yes. The messenger says that he is a plain warner to us. Yes. So we don't need no extra understanding after the messenger teaches us. Praise due to Allah. So he says that the Holy Quran says that he, meaning Allah, this one person, he has the best names and the most beautiful names. So many of these names that we should have are pertaining to our Father. His names of praise and one worthy of praise are just a few of the great names which belong to God. And he wants to give them to us. Must remember, these are his names. These names belong to him, and he wants to give these names to us. So let's go on even further. Because the one thing that I always like to do is I always like to talk about the history. This book right here has got to be one of my most favorite books to read on a scholar who talks about the teachings of the messenger. This book is called A History of Conversion, A History of Conversion to Islam in the United States, Volume 2. This is how much in detail that this person, his name was Patrick D. Bowen. He went from 1920 to 1975. Because what he said, I listened to the interview of him talking about this book. He was talking about how what made him want to do a book on the conversion of black people in America is he said that most of the time when people talk about converts to Islam, they talk about white people. And he said when you look at white people who converted to Islam, he said it's barely 100,000. But he said when you look at the black man convert, it's millions of black people who converted to Islam. And he used in his volume 2 from 1920 to 1975. He wanted to cover the time period of the messenger. Yes. Because that was the largest conversion to Islam in the history of America. Praise due to Allah. Was with the messenger. So in his book, and this chapter was called Cultural Revolution. This was chapter 14. In this chapter, he basically talks about how black culture in America was updated based on the teachings of the messenger. And he gives all, if you look at each page, he has all kind of sources that you can go to and read other books from other social scientists who bear witness to the fact that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings changed black culture in America. Yes, sir. And when you talking about culture, you talking about music, you talking about the arts, you talking about poetry, you talking about religion. Culture incorporates it all. So he is saying that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings changed black culture in America. So let's talk about names. This is what he says. This is chapter 14, and this is on page 552. To show you how many pages, this page 552. And his whole book is dealing with the messenger's time. And he stops at 1975. So he said outside of New York, Islam was becoming so popular in the black culture that many were following Muslim teachings, giving themselves or their children Muslim names, and identifying as Muslims without ever officially joining or being allowed to join any Muslim group, and sometimes without following anything close to the stringent diet and daily habits required by the NOI. This is what it said. Now, when he talking about this, he talking about in the 60s. He talking about in the 60s, it was so many black people who began to follow the teachings of the messenger without actually joining the temple. Now, the messenger taught us about that. He said the black man does not accept Islam as he should.
Yes.
That's what he said. He said the black man, instead of him accepting it wholeheartedly, you hear the truth, you accept the truth wholeheartedly, then you come and follow the message. That's how the black man should accept the truth.
Right.
But the messengers say we don't do that. He said we accept it half-hearted. So he said we take bits and pieces of what he said and add it to this nonsense that we already was believing. So let's give an example when we talking about names. Because he said outside of New York, Islam was becoming so popular in the black culture that many were following Muslim teachings, giving themselves or their children Muslim names without even coming to the temple. So this is a video, because I can't never seem to leave them out. This is a video by our favorite people, Israel United in Christ. The name of the video is called Kareem Mayfield Can't Counterpunch the Truth. They don't even realize how much they bear witness to the teachings of the messenger without even knowing. This brother that they talking to, his name is Kareem Mayfield. Just like the Patrick said, outside of New York, Islam was becoming so popular in black culture that many were following Muslim teachings, giving themselves or their children Muslim names, and identifying as Muslims without ever joining or being allowed to join any Muslim group, and sometimes without following anything close to the stringent diet, daily habits required by the NOI. So this is an example of a brother who was given a Muslim name. The messenger told us that you are not supposed to add a Muslim name with a slave name.
That's right.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it. Now, I'm not criticizing this brother at all. He probably was named by his parents. They probably meant well. But this is an example of the black man not accepting Islam wholehearted. You hear the teachings of the messenger, because the messenger said it was prophesied that one would come named Elijah, and he would turn the hearts of the children to the fathers and the hearts of the fathers to the children. But he taught us it's also a very sad prophecy. He said that out of all of the millions of black people, he said all the prophets saw was 144,000. They say it's over 50 million black people in America. But they say that the prophet said only 144,000 would be saved. Messenger said he was going to do all he could to try to beat the prophet's prediction. He said he would make the truth so plain that even a fool can't act. But one thing he said, prophets don't lie. So this is an example of how we already know we should not be called by Christian names. But what the brother's parents did is he still has a Christian name. Because it would be better to remove Mayfield and put Kareem than remove whatever his first name would be and keep the Mayfield. Because the Mayfield is the part of the name that keeps you handcuffed to the white man.
That's right.
Praise due to Allah. So the message, he said all of us who have the devil's names, he said we will be pushed alive in a lake of fire with the devil. That's what he said. So let's go on even further with this book that is my favorite book to read. This is also from chapter 14, This time, this is on page 548. He says it would be no exaggeration to estimate that tens of thousands of African Americans were adhering to portions of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and other Muslim leaders without claiming to be actual Muslims. Once again, behold, I will send you Elijah, and he, this one person, will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. Praise is due to Allah. The messenger told us that Islam is the nature of the black man. He said Islam is our natural religion. And we see this how well the black man accepted the messenger's teachings. Several times he continuously repeat how black people started to follow the messenger without even going to the temple. Because Islam is our nature. The messenger said that the black man might be slow. And this is why the messenger taught us not to do like the bus stop Bible battles. We don't never, in our whole history, we have never went in front of a church with loud speakers trying to force people who come out to accept the teachings of the messenger. We never did that. No, sir. But what we did do, or what the messenger did, he said, okay, church get out maybe around 11, 12 o'clock. So what we'll do, we'll start our temple meetings at 2. So we'll give the Christians time to get out of church, and now we can invite them to come to the temple. Pray due to Allah. Just offer it to them. So the messenger never wanted us to stand on the corner with loudspeakers, browbeating black people who walking up and down the street. He never told us to do that. The messenger taught us. He said, offer it to him. Because the one thing that the messenger knew, being the messenger of Allah, that these fakes don't know. The messenger said, since the black man is righteous by nature, he said we have what is called a self-accusing spirit.
That's right.
So if the black man just see you enough, hear you enough, he might be slow. It might take you some years for this brother to either listen to you or see you before he begins to change. But the messenger says the black man is righteous by nature.
Yes, sir.
We have a self-accusing spirit. He told us the truth is hard enough by itself, that we don't need to force it or beat it on nobody. Praise due to Allah. He said, all I want you to do is offer them the truth. I remember the first time I heard the messenger talk about brothers selling papers. And what he told us we supposed to do. Because being a lost found, you have to really mold yourself to the mindset of what it really means to be a Muslim. I'm listening to the messenger talk about selling the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. He was telling the brothers pretty much, they the ones who right. You ain't right. They right. They the customer. He said if you go on a black man's porch, he said you knock on his door, say Muhammad speaks. The messenger said if he tells you, nigga, the messenger out is nigga, get off my porch. The messenger said you say, okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Praise due to Allah. As a lost found, you like, even after he called me a nigga, I'm supposed to say, okay, thank you, sir. And I'm telling you, it takes some doing. Because I done been cussed out before. It ain't as easy as it seems, especially at first. Now it's easier. the longer you, but at first, like who he think he talking to? But you begin to understand that the black man is dead. You really understand. So the more you do it, the more you start liking it, the more you see it's only one, it's going to be 1,000 more people I'm going to see. I don't have to just focus on this one brother calling me a nigga. It's another person behind him. So you just, even, I remember being told no. That was something that I had to get used to too. That's a hard thing. It ain't so hard now. But I'm telling you, when you first was out, it was hard to get used to no. People looking at you, they ain't saying nothing when you saying Muhammad speaks. That's what I still don't like that. You look at a person, I'm not going to judge sisters. I understand. Believe me, men treat sisters bad. But a lot of times it be sisters that you say Muhammad speaks, and then just walk past you and don't say a word, like don't even look at you. But you, Muhammad, just walk past them like, no, you see me standing here. But after time, you begin to understand. It don't hurt you so, because it's another person behind her. Muhammad speaks. But I'm telling you, at first to hear them say no, it usually be like, what the hell with you then? That's how you feel. But the messenger, he told us you can't be like that. He said, even when he was telling the brothers, you can't tell them within, when you see and you find out, then he said you can't be like that. He said you have to realize they are dead. Yeah. It's our job to try to get the truth of the messenger to as many people as we can. That's our job. So it's a hard job. But after a while, you begin to love. But this is what the brother said. He said it would be no exaggeration to estimate that tens of thousands of African Americans were adhering to portions of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and other Muslim leaders without claiming to be actual Muslims. In addition, the adoption of Islamic words, phrases, and ideas into common black folk speech and knowledge was gaining momentum and was being endorsed by the prominent new wave of African American poets, playwrights, musicians, and other cultural leaders. Imagine that. He said words, phrases, and ideas. Gotta talk about. These fakes is talking about God is a black man. Now, it's too easy to prove that don't come from them. Right. Too easy. The first thing that's so easy to prove that they didn't do it is because the first thing that you have to do, if you teaching the black man that God is black, the first thing you have to do is teach the black man to love black. The messenger couldn't just go to the verse, Daniel 7:9, where it talks about he got hair like lamb's wool, and say, see, that means God is a black man. He couldn't go to Revelations 1 and 14 and 15, where it says had hair like lamb's wool and feet like brass, as if it was burned in the furnace. He couldn't go straight to that and say, see, that means God is a black man. Because the black man hated black. The black man hated himself. So what the messenger had to first teach us is to love our black self. Not only did he have to teach, it took him years of explaining to get him to say, oh, okay, black is beautiful. After the messenger taught us to love black, it's another idea that he had to teach us before he just goes straight to the verse. He had to teach us the difference between the person and the reality of God versus a spirit God.
Yes.
It took the messenger years upon years of explaining who is that mystery God. He said for thousands of years, the people who did not have the knowledge of the person or reality of God worshiped their own ideas of God.
That's right.
He said he has been made like many things other than what he really is. This was the messenger.
Yes.
It took him years of explaining to get us to understand that God is a black man.
Right.
So when you see old no good line, bust stop bishop trying to go straight to the verse and say, oh, this means God is a black. Well, show us your years of explaining to the black man to get him to love black. Messenger said, he said, don't hate yourself because you are black. He said, black is original. Black is first. Black is the best color for a human being.
That's right.
He said the originator of the heavens and the earth is black. That's how the messenger got us to see that God was a black man.
Right.
Because he is the one who God chose to turn our hearts to Islam. Let's go on even further with what he said. He says, we'll just start over. He said it would be no exaggeration to estimate that tens of thousands of African Americans were adherent to portions of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and other Muslim leaders without claiming to be actual Muslims. In addition, the adoption of Islamic words, phrases, and ideas into common black folk speech and knowledge was gaining momentum and was being endorsed by a prominent new wave of African American poets, playwrights, musicians, and other cultural leaders. He says more than ever before, Islamic themes were penetrating the popular landscape. African American culture had truly underwent a second pro-Islamic institutional change, one that had ushered in a period of Islamic influence and Islamophobia that was far more complex and had a much greater Islamic impact than the institutional change of the Garvey era. I liked it, that part. Because a lot of people say the messenger copied off of Marcus Garvey. And the one thing that people must understand, that you can find similarities in any leader. There's always similarities, especially if you're trying to do good for the black man.
Right.
Marcus Garvey and the messenger had many similarities. But the messenger surpassed Marcus Garvey. Because the messenger told us that God chose me to teach you. Marcus Garvey never taught us that. The messenger told us what was right and what was wrong. He told us who was God and who was the devil.
Right.
He told us when the devil was made and how long his world would last. He told us who our God is, what his name is, when he was born and where. Marcus Garvey never taught the black man that. Messenger told us to love black. He told us the first God was black. He said all other colors come from black. Marcus Garvey never taught us that. The messenger had built for the black man a black economic empire that still is unmatched to this day. Pray due to Allah. Marcus Garvey. The messenger spoke good of Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
He said he tried. You can't fault a person for trying. He said Marcus Garvey and Noble Drew Ali tried.
Yes.
The messenger even talked about Dr. King. He used to beat up on Dr. King. But one time the messenger said, He said, I believe that Dr. King is doing the best he can with what he knows.
Yes.
That's what he said. He's doing the best he can with what he knows. And that's why everybody respected the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he lived. The one thing that I like, and I'm going to mention real brief, because thinking about these fakes who talk about the messenger, the one thing that I like to continuously say is no matter how much people disrespect the messenger in this generation, people who never saw the messenger, people who never saw his work, they never saw the impact of a black. I remember reading this sister article one time. It was in 1975. She was talking about the mental stress that it took for her to begin to see black and love black. She was saying she don't want Elijah Muhammad to be put in a bag and we give James Brown credit for I'm black and I'm proud. She was like, I don't want us to remember Donald B. Elijah Muhammad. And she was a lost found. She said, I could remember the mental anguish that I had to go through to start to see black and love black. She explained that. Mental anguish. She said for years, we saw black and we hated black. She said it straight up. I had to go through mental anguish. She said it took her years to hear the teachings of the messenger, to finally understand and love her own black self. Pray due to Allah. So she was saying not only did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us to love black, he gave us a simplistic example to show us that the black man is worth something. That's what the messenger did. He didn't only just point to the scripture in the Bible and show you this right here means that God is black. The messenger, for the first time in the black man's life here in America, actually could see God in another brother. That's what he taught us. You can actually see a black man who was in the mud, who was addicted to drugs, alcohol. You could see him clean himself up. And the messenger said, he said, every time you look into the face of a black man, you see God.
That's right.
That was hard at first for us to accept. It was hard to believe. But after years of seeing the black man cleaned up, then you look at this black man and you could really see God. So you can say with pride, the black man is God and the white man is the devil.
Yes, sir.
He fully explained to us what makes a devil. The messenger, God's messenger, said that Yaqub, he told us Yaqub was a black scientist. He said Yaqub discovered in the sperm of the black man that we have two people in us. He said one is black and one is brown. He said Yaqub discovered that if he separate the brown from the black and grab the black into its last stage, which would be white, he can make a man to rule the black man. Never had we heard nothing like that in our life. That a black man made the white race. The messenger said, Yaqub knew that if he gave a white race a superior knowledge of what the messenger called trick knowledge, he could rule us for 6,000 years. But the messenger, he taught us, he said this is just an experiment. He said that the gods wanted to see was righteousness stronger than evil. He said they wanted to see could evil capture us 100%. He said it couldn't. Evil couldn't capture us 100%. So the messenger said, Yaqub was on the island of Pelan called Patmos in the Bible. He said he saw the end of the white race. He said Yaqub saw Master Farad Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
He saw him. He said when he come, he said he gonna eat you up. Messenger told the white man. I wish I would have brought the article. But in 1959, I remember the first time I read this article. When the messenger was talking to J.B. Stone. Because a lot of times the history we get of the messenger today, they make us think the messenger was just some old sick man who used to be in Chicago coughing all the time. They never tell us his history as a soldier. The messenger in this article. Because it took me years to finally get these Muhammad Speaks newspapers to follow up on this story. They say in the papers and in newspapers.com, they say that J.B. Stoner threatened some of the Muslims in Atlanta, Georgia. They say the messenger say, okay. He responded to J.B. Stoner in the 1959 Pittsburgh carry. Messenger called J.B. Stoner out in 1959. Said his name. Said where he lived. And he told J.B. Stoner, if you decide to hurt one of my followers, he said, Allah will baptize you in trouble that's other than peace.
Yes, sir.
That's what he told this devil in a Pittsburgh carrier in front of the whole nation of black people. Say you will baptize yourself in trouble that's other than peace. He said if J.B. Stone wants to be carried out on us, he said I'm only looking to Allah for help. He said and J.B. Stoner knows that Allah has 7 powers and he's not strong enough for one.
Right.
That's what the messenger told J.B. Stone.
Yes, sir.
So the messenger, I believe it was in 1960, messenger decided because like my father used to tell me, when I used to be so bad, thinking I'm getting away, my daddy would just walk in the room and just say, boy, you don't believe Fat Meat Greasy, do you? It took me a couple of whoopings to understand why he would say that. To where he used to say it so much that when he would walk in the room and say, I'd be like, maybe it's time for me to take my foot off the gas. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. That's what the messenger had to show J.B. Stone.
Yes, sir.
J.B. Stoner don't believe Fat Meat Grease. So we gonna go right down to Atlanta, Georgia and show him. So the messenger went down to Atlanta, Georgia. In the 1975 Muhammad Speaks, I think it was Jeremiah and some other believers that was in Atlanta at that time was talking about that incident with J.B. Stone. They were saying that the Muslims and the Ku Klux Klan was going back and forth in the newspaper. They said that the brothers told J.B. Stoner and them because the Klan had threatened in the newspaper that if that old Elijah Muhammad come down here, we gonna march through they meat. Jeremiah said, they responded in the paper and said, we will first, they said, we are a peaceful people. Yeah. That's how they always started out. We are peaceful people. We have a history of being peaceful all throughout the country. But he said if J.B. Stoner and the Ku Klux Klan decide to march through our meeting to disrupt it, we will not be responsible for what happened. Short and sweet. Come on through our meeting. We'll bust your Ku Klux Klan head. That's why I love reading the fighting stuff with them. I'm telling you, they was black men. Messenger, that they used to have a saying. They used to say, Muhammad don't make no punks, no faggots, no sissies, and no chumps. That's what that 4I used to say. We don't say that no more today. But I used to love to hear them brothers say, Muhammad don't make no punks, no faggots, no sissies, and no chumps. That's what the messenger did. So it says, you can read in the Atlanta Journal, 1960, and you can read in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. When you read in the Atlanta Constitution and other magazines, everybody was waiting on this showdown. Because you know a lot of people like Louis Lomax, this Negro, he gonna say, the reason why the Ku Klux Klan didn't march through their meeting was because the Muslims in Atlanta went to the police and begged the police to secure the area so the Klan couldn't march through. That's how people used to hate on the messenger, to try to make it seem like he ain't really doing what he really was doing. So our question is, okay, if that's true, why did they help the Muslims but didn't help the Christians? How many demonstrations did Martin Luther King have when police pressed themselves attacking the black man? So now we supposed to believe that Muslims can go down to the police station and tell the police, help us, because the Klan coming. And they say, we got your back. The messengers told J.B. Stoner, I'm only looking for Allah for help. J.B. Stoner knew exactly what that meant. J.B. Stoner knew the history of Islam. But let's keep going. I didn't even intend to talk about that. But Allah is the best known. Now let's keep on going with the messenger. Not only did the messenger teach us that we are the direct descendants of God himself, he also taught us that in the Bible, where it says the sons of God, that's talking about the black man. We never knew and never understood what that meant. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. He said King James had poets to write the Bible. He said, and he wrote the Bible in the language that a slave would not understand. He said in poetic language, you say one thing and you mean something else. This is how King James robbed us of the true knowledge of God. Because when King James wanted to hide or conceal the identity of his people, he called them a beast. He called them a dragon. He called them a serpent. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, don't look at the word. He said, look at the characteristics of the serpent. Right. The characteristics of the beast. The characteristic of the dragon. Who fit those characteristics? The white race fits those characteristics. So when you talking about the black man, we hated black. We saw nothing good with black. We didn't know that black was original. So when we reading about the sons of God in the Bible, we thought it was talking about some spirits. We thought in the verse where it says the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives. We thought that meant some spirits came down and had babies with some human people And they said Neanderthal, whatever they call these extra tall people. Because they would say that God is a spirit and a spook. They never taught us that God is a man. The messenger told us if it says in the Bible that God sees, God hears. He said, Adam said he heard God walking. Then God must be a man. Because those are attributes of a human being. We never thought about that before in our life. I can still remember when I was reading in the message to the black man how the messenger would break that down. Sometime I would read the whole who is that mystery God. Sometime I would just read a paragraph and try to sit back and think like, how God a man though? It took me a long time to really understand because I could see when you believe in a spook, you can see the spook talking. You can see the spook walking. You can see the spook having compassion for a man. So it took me a long time to continue to read it over and then another thing about the messenger's teachings. You can lose what it took you so long to get. The messenger said to us as ministers, and we all should remember, he said, if you slumber on Islam and you stop being active, you stop doing your part, he said after long, you will be like one who never knew the truth.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It don't matter how wise you think you are, no matter how many lessons you quote, no matter how shiny your skin is, messenger said if you slumber, if you get slack on the job, before long, you will be like one who never even knew the truth.
That's right.
That's what the messenger taught. So when we get these names, in my conclusion, when we choose a name for ourselves, we must always remember that these are God's names. These names belong to Him. These are His attributes. And when we talking about God, we ain't talking about a spook. When we talking about God, we talking about Master Farad Muhammad. He is the Allah that has 99 attributes. He is the most merciful. The black man in the man. What other God is merciful to you? What other God is beneficent to you? No other God but Master Farad. What other God is the greatest for you? No other God but Master Farad Muhammad. Because the one thing the messenger taught us, he said, I represent to you God in person.
That's right.
That's what we always need to remember when we start thinking about these people trying to take us off. Because Farrakhan is a good. He say all the time. He say if Master Farad Muhammad was born in 1877, how could he be the originator? That's how he do to get you back spooky. But the messenger said, I represent to you God in person. So these other gods, who represent them to us? Nobody represented no other God to the black man but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He taught us, I represent to you God in person. I'm not a prophet. Or he said, I'm not a prophet. I'm a messenger.
Yes.
Telling you what somebody told me.
That's exactly what he said.
Well, brothers and sisters, we don't want to prolong the time. So I leave you as I came in the nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, soul master's day of judgment in which we now live. The alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path. Path of those upon whom thou spell thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is ever to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us not to do anything to anyone that we wouldn't have done it to ourselves, and treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.